When the mercury drops and the horizon disappears, a winter wilderness becomes a suffocating, frozen trap. For anyone caught in this isolation, the primary struggle is simply staying alive against the crushing weight of the cold. Long before the arrival of European settlers, the indigenous peoples of the Great Lakes region lived with this dread every year. This historical Anishinaabe winter camp represents the physical reality where the myth of the Wendigo was born, a culture shaped by spirits inhabiting the land. Look at this Ojibwe painting of the creature. It is described as a gaunt, frostbitten spirit that carries the scent of decay. At its center is a heart of solid ice, representing a spirit that has completely lost its warmth and humanity. At its ancient origin, the Wendigo embodies winter's most lethal and uncontrollable reality: physical starvation. When food stores ran dry and the snow made hunting impossible, desperation could drive a person toward the ultimate taboo. In the Algonquin tradition, resorting to cannibalism to survive was the specific trigger that invited the Wendigo's curse. The biological mechanic of the curse is unique. Whenever the Wendigo feeds, it instantly scales up in size to match the mass it just consumed. Because its internal emptiness expands at the exact same rate, it is mathematically impossible to ever feel full. This forces the monster into an agonizing, solitary cycle. It must feed to survive, but every meal only increases its starvation, leaving it perpetually famished and alone. This myth functioned as a vital socioeconomic guardian. It taught that selfishness and the destruction of communal ties wouldn't lead to survival. It would only lock the individual into a permanent state of suffering, preserving the resource sharing necessary to keep the tribe alive. That what happens to this curse when we remove the physical threat of starvation while leaving the extreme isolation completely intact? We find the answer in the work of Algernon Blackwood. In his 1910 novella, The Wendigo, Blackwood reimagined the indigenous myth for a global audience, drawing on his own experiences in the Canadian backwoods. Blackwood made a deliberate narrative choice. He removed the literal act of cannibalism from the story entirely. In its place, he focused on the psychological hunger that emerges when a person is left alone with the vast, uncaring wilderness. He defined this terror through the lens of cabin fever and extreme wanderlust. In his version, the victim is seduced by a siren voice in the wind, a call that lures them away from safety and into the desolation of the wild. The scale of the wilderness itself performs the consumption. It devours the victim's human identity, stripping away their rationality and empathy until they are nothing more than a hollowed-out echo of a person. This version of the Wendigo lives as a dark impulse hibernating inside every human soul. It is a latent part of our nature that only requires enough isolation to wake up. This hunger eventually scaled up from the individual to the global. The Wendigo is no longer confined to the historical woods. It has found a way to manifest in the modern world. The Ojibwe scholar Basil Johnston argued that the Wendigo never actually died out. It simply adapted to a new era. Johnston's text identifies the modern reincarnations of the beast, corporations, and multinational entities. Their diet shifted from human flesh to natural resources, driven to consume immense tracts of forest and natural wealth, indulging immediate self-interest, unconcerned by the harm inflicted on the future. We see this reflected in modern cinema, like Larry Fessenden's The Last Winter. This image of oil drilling rigs invading the Arctic represents the Wendigo as an ancient force awakened by human exploitation of the Earth. The scale of consumption shown in this pile of logs is the modern equivalent of the ancient taboo. It is the act of destroying the community's future environment to satisfy a drive for immediate, unregulated profit. Colonialism, capitalism, and environmental destruction utilize the exact same mechanics of self-destructive consumption found in the original myth. They are systems that grow larger and more desperate the more they are fed. The narrative eventually returns to the solitary figure we saw at the beginning, a single human alone against the wilderness. The myth has traveled from the starving body to the isolated mind, and finally to the global hunger of modern society. This ancient curse is a mirror for human nature itself. It serves as a reminder that unless we learn to master our own insatiable hungers, they will eventually consume everything we have built.